So today's topic is about listeners. Tomorrow I'll cover samplers. Okay. Let me complete listeners today. So what are listeners? So listeners are used to display the results, right? Listeners are used to display the results in Jmeter. So there are different types of listeners. One listener is view. You know this listener already. View results tree, right? So what is the use of this listener? We run this. So what do you get in view results tree? You'll get the result of each and every sampler in a detailed way. Like if you take first sampler, you'll see 3 tabs here. Sampler result, the overall summary result of that particular sampler, and you will see another tab called request and another tab called response, right? Request is whatever request you are sending to the server, right? Here it's a launch request. So what you are sending to the server, your launch URL. So that is what you will see here. And here you will see the request headers, right? For every sampler, you will have some headers, right? This comes automatically when you record your script, these headers, right? So these headers you will see in view results tree under request tab. You will see request body and request headers. And the same way, you'll see a response body and response headers, right? So these 3 tabs will be there for each and every sampler in view results tree. Okay. The sampler result contains the overall report, the summary report of that particular sampler. It contains the load time. See the load time of, that means the response time of this particular sampler. Okay, this connect time is the network time. Okay, the latency is also the network latency, right? And this is the size of that particular page. So all these details you can see. The response code is 200 or not, whether it is successful or not, everything you will see in this first tab. In the second tab, you will see the request. Third tab, you will see response. And also what you need to know here is there are several views in this view results tree for each and every sampler. I have selected text view, right? You know this. If I select HTML view, what will happen? You will see the web page, how the web page is loading and all. We can see, right? And there is one more view. There are several views, and there is one more view which we generally use. It's called regular expression tester. Okay? For what this view is for? Because we do correlations, and if we give the regular expression here, whatever regular expression here, and if we click on test, you'll see the result. If you are getting the right result or not, you can easily check, right? So these are the several views which you will see. So regular expression tester, boundary extractor tester. Like whenever you do correlation, there is one more type of way to correlate, right? By giving left and right boundary. So you can give your left boundary here, right boundary here, and if you click on test, it will test it for you. Something like this, right? So it is giving content type as a result. Something like that. if you are using left and right boundary for your correlation, you can test it using this boundary expression tester. And also you have CSS selector tester. You can do correlations not only using regular expression. You can also do your correlations using boundary expression tester. You can also do it using CSS selector tester, JSON path tester. It's all with you. Whatever it is feasible for you, you can choose. So you have views and you have testing views in your sampler for each and every type of correlation. Okay. So these are the things which you need to know in view results tree. And sometimes what will happen in your project is sometimes you will do all the correlations and still you are not seeing the right response in your response data. Then what you have to check is this part. You did everything. You did correlations. You passed everything. You have enabled your cookie manager, header manager, cache manager, everything you did. But still you are not getting, if you are not getting the right response, what you need to check is the request headers. Okay. This is what you need to check. You need to compare these request headers with your browser request headers. You just need to open the same page in your browser, right? The same page in your browser. Okay, this is the page, right? So what you need to do, go to your developer tools, okay, and just browse this page, and you got a response, right? This is your request, right? This is your request in your developer tools. Open this, and here you will see your request headers. If you scroll down, so these are the request headers, right? If your page is not successful, even after doing your correlation, even after enabling cache manager, cookie manager, you did everything. If you are still not getting the success response when you are running your script, then you can check if you are passing all the request headers or not. You can compare the request headers by going to the developer tools, compare these request headers with the request headers, whatever you are seeing here, right? These are your request headers in your sampler. Just compare this with your these request headers. If there are anything missing, you copy. For example, in here, these request headers are missing. Just you need to copy like this. Come back to the Jmeter, and where you need to add these request headers in our sampler, right? Here is where we need to add. You need to go to this HTTP header manager, and these are your default request headers which got recorded while you are recording your script. If you want to add any additional headers, just click on add. And what are you adding here? This authority, right? So this authority will be your header name. And what is your header value? This performance testing practice.com, right? Performance. That way, any kind of missing headers, you can grab those from this developer tools and you can add this here straight away. Okay. In this case, my launch screen is successful, so I'm not adding anything. But in case in your projects, if you did everything, but still your response is failing, then you can add, you can check by adding this request headers, right? So whatever request headers you are adding in the sampler, those will get reflected here. And the response data, what we get in the response, whatever you are sending the request, whatever you are getting from your server as a response, that's what you will see here, right? The response body and response status. You cannot tweak anything here. Whatever you want to change, you can only change in the request, right? You can only change the request headers, but you cannot impact or change anything in the response body or response headers, right? Because this is what you are getting from the server. But this is request is the one which you are sending to the server, right? But in view results tree, this is what you will see. So when do you use view results tree? You use view results tree only when you are doing the scripting part. During only the scripting phase, you do correlations, parameterizations, and all that, right? During that time, you will do this. You will have to enable this view results tree. Once your scripting is completed, then you have to switch back to aggregate report. And what is aggregate report? Aggregate report is one which you get where you get the response time of your transactions with n number of users. Like you will be running your test with thousands of users, right? So you get you need to see the response time of launch, login, sign in, log of transactions with that many users and that many transactions. So that's what you'll see here. And you know what you'll see in the aggregate report, right? Samplers, average response time, median, 90 percentile. You know what is 90 percentile? So 90 percentile response time, again I'm telling you, 90 percentile response time is the one which we highlight it to the customers, not the average response time, right? Average response time also we will give, but 90 percentile response time is the response time which we will showcase to the customer, right? And what is the difference between 90 percentile and average response time? 90 percentile response time means 90% of my transactions are performing within that time. In this case, my sign-in is 1.2 seconds, around 1.2 seconds, 90 percentile response. So 90% of my transactions are performing within 1.2 or 1.5 seconds, right? So that is the most worst case response time. If your 90 percentile response times are good, then you can make sure that your performance of your application is better. So that is why we have to give 90 percentile response time. 95 percentile, 99 percentile are more worst case scenarios which you don't need to provide it to your clients. Okay, those are not required. So but 90 percentile response times are the one which you need to highlight it to the clients. And how do you prepare the reports and all? I'll tell you now. So this is your aggregate report. So you will get all your transactions here, launch, login, sign in, log off and all. And there is an option here, right? There is an option here to give some path, right? Till now, I didn't give any path here. I'm just running like this, right? Now, let me give a path here. So I just clicked on browse and I'm giving some path under results section. What I'll do, my sample aggregate. My sample aggregate is what I'm naming this, and I'm just clicking on open. So this is what the file I gave, and you can make it, you can just give it a extension as a CSV, right? So that it will save it in CSV format, right? So now what I'll do, I'll clear everything and I'll run this test once again. And what you need to do, you need to go to this particular path where this path is under Jmeter bin folder. You need to go to the results section and there you will see this file, right? My sample aggregate file is there, right? So whatever test you are running, if you give a path like this, so your CSV file, okay, your results file will be saved in that particular path in CSV format, right? In CSV format, your results file will get saved automatically, right? So go to this and open this report. And this is how you are seeing the report, right? Whatever the report you are getting here is not matching with the report which you are seeing there, right? Here you are seeing samples, average response time, 90 percentile, 99 percentile, all that. But here in my sample aggregate report, you are seeing a different kind of report, right? Here you are seeing some timestamp and all that. So what you need to do is, you cannot open these reports directly, right? The advantage of having this particular report is you are running a script, you ran a test now, and at the end of the day, you'll shut down your laptop, you close your systems, and you logged in the very next day, but you don't see this result. Once you open the Jmeter, you don't see this result, right? For example, I just open a normal Jmeter, not this particular. So the very next day, I'm just opening the Jmeter. I just opened my laptop and opened the Jmeter. I thought of checking the result which I ran yesterday, but I couldn't find it, right? Because the one which you ran yesterday, you cannot see it today, it will not be saved. But I gave a path and your results got saved in this format, right? In this some particular format with timestamp and all that in my sample aggregate report, right? Let's try to open those results, right? So what I'll do, I just need to open Jmeter, a new Jmeter file, and you need to add a listener. I want to see aggregate report. So I am adding an aggregate report and I'm clicking on browse. Okay. Go to that bin folder under downloads. So this is my report, right? My sample aggregate report. So open that and see. Here you're seeing your report, right? Whatever report you need, you're seeing it here. And you don't need, see, here you see the samplers report also, and also the overall control, transaction control. So you don't need this report, right? The samplers response time you don't need. What you need is only launch, login, sign in, and log off. So you can consider only these 4 rows, right? So this is how you can get your report. You cannot, though you gave path here, you cannot open that report directly. You cannot double click and open the report directly. To open the report, what you need to do, again, you need to open Jmeter and add an aggregate report and open that particular CSV file like this, right? Getting me? Any questions till this point?
Sir,
Yeah.
the same for the result tree, view results tree, we have to have a separate output file for each of the listeners, or the same output file can be used for different listeners.
I will tell you that. So the same file you can use for any kind of listener, not only view results tree. The same file can be used for any listener. You open any listener and browse that file, and you'll see the results, right? I will show you that. Like I will run this. I'll run a small test using non-GA mode. Then I'll show you, right? I can show you now itself. That's fine. Let me open that.
Same result for all listeners, sir.
So that file can be used for all listeners. Correct. I will show right now. So I will open 2 listeners here. One is view results tree and another one is aggregate report, right? And let me browse aggregate report first. Okay, what is that file name? My sample aggregate, right? So aggregate report has been opened, right? And I want to open view results tree also. Browse. That's it.
Okay.
Got it? And
yes.
Next, you want to open only success reports. Only success reports, but you want to see this aggregate report might contain both success and failure. You don't know because you ran 1 hour test or an endurance test or something. It contains both success and failure, but you want to see only success transactions. select, open this aggregate report, select success, and then open this. You will see only success transactions here, right? A same case with view results tree. Just you want to see, if you want to see only errors, just select that and just browse for only errors. And not only view results tree and aggregate report, you can see, you can add any kind of listeners here. I want to see response time over time. I added response time over time graph here, and again browse the same CSV file. See, got it? So this is the advantage which you'll have with this.
Yes. So I know I asked you this yesterday, but in the view results tree, can we go to the HTML mode and see the? I'm just checking. So
in view results tree,
in the HTML, not the text in the HTML.
yeah. See, yes, of course you can see. You are not getting anything.
Because we save the data in CSV format, right? So
No, you'll see, definitely you'll see.
Okay.
Even text mode also, it's not showing it, but it is showing only sampler result currently. But you should see these things also. Let me get back to you on this. Remind me tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sure. Thanks.
Yeah. So this is what you will see. This is what is all about. This aggregate report. So you know what is aggregate report, right? So there is one more report called summary report. So aggregate report and summary report are one and the same, right? So both looks similar, but there is a very small difference. Generally, we use aggregate report because aggregate report generates 90 percentile response time. Whereas in summary report, you don't see 90 percentile response time. You will see some average bytes, standard deviation, and all those things in summary report. But whereas in aggregate report, you'll see a lot of other options like 90 percentile response times and all that. Right here, you don't see 90 percentile response time, 95 percentile, but here you're seeing standard deviation and all that, average bytes and all that, some network related stuff. Okay, that is the only difference. We generally use aggregate report instead of using summary report, right? So aggregate report, so I've covered this success, selecting success and all that, right? Yeah, okay. And I hope everyone got the difference between 90 percentile and average response. If someone have any doubts, ask me, I'll explain you once again, because that is very, very important for you even in interview. So you'll get those kind of questions in interview. Which one do you consider? What is the difference between 90 percentile and average? All these type of questions, right? So here I have given you the example as well in the material. We can go through. Okay, the next report is average graph. So there is one more report called average graph. So it's already been enabled. So if I'm just removing this and running it once again, and see this test is running. If you click on graph, it will show you the result in graphical format. Like you have launch, you have login, sign in, and log out. So all these transactions it will show you in this graphical format. That's it, right? And you can select these things, right? In average graph, like currently I have selected average, right? I want 90 percentile graph only, not average. Select 90 percentile graph, stop the test and run once again. And this time what you'll see is 90 percentile graph like this, right? You'll see 90 percentile graph, right? And if you want to see both, even that is possible. Select both average and 90 percentile and run the test. You will see both. Like this, right? So this is the red one is average and green one is 90 percentile. So I mean it's all the options which you have in Jmeter. Like you can see most of the times clients are interested in these kind of graphs instead of sharing them the numbers and all that. Most of the people will never read those numbers and all that, right? Like aggregate report, if you are sharing them the aggregate report with some 90 percentile average response times, number of samples and all that, no one will read it. So if you share this in graphical format, it will be easier for them to understand how the application is behaving with load, right? So that's the reason you have these kind of graphs also, right? And you can save your graph as well, right? So you can give the name. See, you have something called graph title. So you can name like my sample response time graph. I just named it as my sample response time graph, and you can save this graph, right? Sorry. Yeah, so it will be saved in this .pf and .png file. So I'm saving this now under results. So aggregate graph. Just go to the result. Under that, you'll see this aggregate graph, right? So if you open this, so it will be saved in the image format, and this is the name which I just mentioned there, right? My sample underscore response time underscore graph, and this is the report which you will be getting. You can share these reports to your clients, right? So these two graphs are average and 90%, right? So this is one more listener which you have in Jmeter, and and you know what is simple data writer, which I have covered already. So it will be useful when you are running the test in non-JA mode, and what you will see in simple data writer. See, whenever I am running the test, for example, I cleared it and I am running the test, and it is asking till now, like we are running the test from long back and never gave a pop-up or warning screen like this, right? Because this screen is coming because I have added a simple data writer and given this path. So every time when I'm running, it is asking me. So there is a simple data writer and a file path which has been mentioned in the script. Do you want me to override that file, or do you want me to append that existing file, or don't start the test? If you want to change the file name or something, I can do. If I change the file name, it will not ask. So for example, I gave login failure logs.jtl, right? I'll give logs1.jtl, and now it will not ask me, right? It will run directly and it will create a new file now. See, it already created. So this is the new one. This is the old one, right? So you know what you'll see here, right? All the logs which are happening during the test, right? These logs you'll see. And you know how to give assertions, how to give custom messages in assertions, and whatever custom messages you are giving in the assertions, those will be reflected in these logs, so that it will be very easier for you to identify the issues. The main motive of having this simple data writer is you are going to run your tests in non-GUI mode. Running your tests in non-GUI mode, or what will happen, you'll close everything and you'll run your tests in command prompt, right? And after the test, you need to identify where the tests are failing, why you are getting high failures and all that, right? You'll open aggregate reports and all. And if you are seeing a lot of failures in fund transfer, and if you are seeing a lot of failures in bill payments, how do you identify? How do you know why it is failing? The reason for the failure and all that, you can see those in these logs. You would have given some assertions and all that in your fund transfer and bill payment samplers, right? So what you have to do after the test, if fund transfers and bill payments are failing, what you need to do, just need to open this particular report and search for those assertions. You would have given a custom message in assertion, like something fund transfer failed for some particular user or something. Just search for this and you'll go to that particular line, and there you'll see the reason for the failure and all that, right? You'll see even the response code. See, everywhere you're seeing 200 here. If you go to the failures, you will see some error, like error pages like 404 or 500 internal server errors and all that. If you read that particular line, you will know the reason for failure. What screen are you getting at that point of time? Why that particular page is failing, right? All that you will know. So having this simple data writer is very important. You need to definitely have this simple data writer so that you can read the logs. And it is always recommended to select errors for your simple data writer. If you don't select this, what will happen? This will save both all success and failure messages as well. So it will be very difficult for you to identify the failures. So always recommended to select errors here, right? Okay, so next one is view results in a table, right? One more listener for view results in table. So this view results in table will give you the result of each and every sampler, each and every transaction in a tabular format, right? See, with this view results in table, you will get to know how your threads are running, how your thread groups are getting handled. See, if you see the third column, you are seeing thread group 1-1. What is 1-1? Thread group 1 is the first thread group. If you are running multiple thread groups, anyway during your load test, you will have multiple thread groups, one for fund transfer, one for bill payment, one for account creation, all that, right? So this one indicates, the first one indicates thread group 1, and second one indicate the threads, the actual threads. That means the users, right? So here you will get to know how your transactions are happening for each and every user, right? So each and every user, in the first thread group, in the first user, this is the first launch. In the first thread group, the second user, this is the first launch. This is the launch. And this first thread group, second user, this is the login. And here you can know that time, the load time or the response time for each and every sample. See, this is the one which you are seeing. This is similar to the view results tree. This is one and the same. But in view results tree, you are seeing everything in it, like in this format, like the line by line, and you can scroll it. You have to manually select it. But here in view result in table, you will get it in a tabular format like this. Okay, you can see everything in this table itself. And this start bytes, I mean the bytes, the send bytes, latency, all network related things also you can see here, right? And the good thing here is the number of samples also you can see. See, this will count the number of samples after the test. It will automatically, this number of samples will get displayed here, right? All these things will be there. And for all the listeners, not only this view results in table, even for aggregate report and all that, you have a particular thing called, you have a particular option called configure. If you click on this configure, if you want to add some more rows, you can add here. So by default, Jmeter will give you whatever you need, right? You don't need to add any other options or rows here. But if you want, you can add something like this. Like if you want to select save response file name, save encoding and all that, these options you can select whatever you are selecting, that row, that column will get added here for you, right? And as I already told you, these are the default graphs, default listeners, which you will get by default in Jmeter. But by adding some jar files, plugins, you will get some additional listeners also. These are the additional listeners. You know how to add. I already explained you how to add these listeners using plugins, right? You have, by adding plugins, you will get this active threads over time. Okay, performance metrics, collector, response time over time, transaction per second. And how to get these things? There are two ways. Go search for these plugins in internet. That is one way which I told you already, right? If you search for those plugins, you'll get it, right? Like response time over time in Jmeter. And the first result itself is that plugin. And click on download, and this is the current version 2.0. If you download this, you will get 3 graphs here: average response time, active threads, and success and failed transactions. So these graphs you will get, and you know how to download the plugin and how to copy the jar files and all that, right? That is one way. That is one way. And another way is to add this using plugins manager. You have something called plugins manager in Jmeter. Under options, you have this plugins manager. So if you open this plugin manager, see, here is where you will see all your plugins, right? If you type response times or something here, you'll get these are installed plugins. See, there are 3 things here: installed plugins. Already, these are the already installed plugins, and these are available plugins, right? If you type response, see, related to this response word, these are the graphs which you have currently. 5 additional graphs. Okay, Apache Jmeter schema assertion, distributed percentile graphs. Okay, JUnit reporter. So there are many plugins, right, in Jmeter. I just typed a word called response and you got all these plugins related to that response word, right? So these additional graphs contains response codes, okay? Byte throughput, connect times, latency, hits. So these graphs you will get if you download this particular plugin. How to download? Select this and that's it. I mean, select this and apply the changes. Second. So you need to click on apply changes and restart the Jmeter so that that particular additional graphs will come automatically. So not able to select it because of some screen resolutions. Okay, anyway, don't worry. But I have already downloaded the plugins which are almost necessary for your tests. So these are the some important plugins under listeners which are necessary for you. Active threads over time. Okay. Response time over time and transactions per second. Okay. Performance metrics collector plugin, I'll tell you later. Okay. That is something related to monitoring. Okay. So if I add these plugins and run the tests, so you will see the direct graphs here, right? How your threads are running, how the ramp up is happening. Okay. And if you go to the response time graph over time, what response times of each and every transaction, also you can see in graphical format, and also the transaction per second. This is your throughput graph, right? And I told you already, if you want to see the overall throughput, what you need to do, go to the settings and instead of detailed display, if you select aggregate display, you will see the overall throughput like this. Right? This is the overall throughput, and you have only two things here: failed transaction per second and success transaction per second. Okay. So you don't see any failed transaction per second as of now because there are no failures, right? So this is your throughput. This is your overall throughput graph. And if you want to see the throughput graph independent for each and every request, click on detail and you will see detailedly for each and every transaction, right? And the same way for your response time graph as well. If you want to check overall response time, aggregate display, this will give you the overall response time. But generally check detailed response time, right? You need the response time of each and every transaction, right? So this is how you get the detailed response time of each and every transaction, right? And you can also uncheck these things. If you want to see at the end, you are running many, like you'll be running your test with multiple thread groups, and there will be many steps in your test and all that, right? So if you see the response time over time graph in that report, it will be really clumsy. In that case, you can uncheck unnecessary transactions, and you can check only the transactions which needs to be focused. Like I want to see only sign in transaction response time. You can select only that so that you can see only sign in response time like this, right? So only focused transactions also you can select. And how do you save these graphs? It's very simple. You just need to right click and save the graph as an image. That's it. It will get saved automatically. Right click, save. And if you don't want to save, but you want to put this graph directly into your email, what you need to do is just copy it. That's it. Copy it and paste it directly. I just copied it and pasted it, right? So it will get pasted like this. You can paste it directly into your emails as well. Quickly, you can email to your development team or your DevOps team to check why the response times are increasing and all that, right? And there is one more thing here for all these listeners, not only for this whatever I'm saying right now is applicable for all listeners. There is one thing called in settings. So this is currently displaying you the start time and end time, like it is starting with 0:00:00 and running for 30 seconds, right? But if you want to see the absolute time, you can also do that by unchecking this relative times, right? If you uncheck this, you can see the current time as well. See, it is starting at around 9:30, around 9:24. It ran for 30 seconds, 9:24 to 9:24:30. So you can see the absolute time as well, like this, right? So these are the things which will become handy in your projects, right? So at the end, your development team and all will ask you your test start and end duration. So it is always recommended to uncheck this so that you will get the actual time here. So if you paste this graph directly in the graph itself, they can see the test start time and end time directly. You don't need to mention any time. So you don't need to note down your time during your test and all that, right? So active threads OOT will give you how your threads are increasing and how your test is running. So this is not the right test duration, right? If I give 300 here, you'll get to know how your graph look like. And see how your ramp up is happening. It will ramp up for 22 users, and from there it will run for 5 minutes. So you can monitor your response time graphs also at the same time. And see your sign-in transaction response time has been increased, right? And you can see the absolute time also, at what time it started increasing. And at the in your projects, you'll be running your test for 1 hour, or for endurance test, you'll run for 14 hours or 24 hours. So you might be seeing high response time, suddenly high spikes, maybe after half an hour or 45 minutes. So these graphs will become really handy in those cases, right? Exactly, you can find out where at what time you are getting the spikes and all that, right? See, this is how your graph should look like when you're running your load test, right? This is your ramp up, and this is the steady state, and this is running for 5 minutes. And whatever precise throughput timer you are giving there, that should reflect here also, right? Okay, see, aggregate report, you're seeing around how much throughput? 7 per second throughput. Okay, 7 per second is the throughput which you are seeing. Okay, see, this is what it is maintaining it, right? The blue color one. Between 7, 8 and 9 it is maintaining, so it is around 7. So it will reflect the same. The throughput which you are seeing in aggregate report will reflect the same here in your transaction per second graph also. Okay, see, here you are getting a lot of errors because That is why you are seeing failure transaction per second response time. Failure transaction per second graph is also increasing. So always in your load test, your failure transaction per second graph, if your failure transaction per second graph is maintaining at 0, then your like you don't have any, that indicates that you have 0 errors in your test, right? Your transactions are not failing. That's the reason your failure transaction per second is not increasing. If your transactions are failing, this failure TPS graph will also start increase. So always in your test, only this blue color graph should show. Your pink color graph should always be 0. Right? This is your transaction response time, and see the sign-in response time is high. You can share these kind of graphs to your developer and ask them to check the reason for this failure and all that, right? Getting me? Any questions till this point? Ravi?
Sir, I have a question for all listeners in general, sir.
Yeah, tell me please.
So all the listeners except for the simple data writer, they are only while we are recording and playing, while we are scripting and playing it, right? That
Exactly.
all of them, because all of these would be only during developing the script, right?
Exactly. See, maybe aggregate report and all you can run while you can run your load test as well using aggregate report, right? See, always, even I don't run in non-GA mode always. So why do we run the tests in non-GA mode? We run the tests in non-GA mode because our laptop will not support thousands of users in GA mode. That will consume a lot of memory, all that, right? But if you are running your tests with 500 users or some hundreds of users or 150 users, just a kind of smoke test and all, if you are doing, then you can happily run your test in GA mode itself by enabling this aggregate report and all that, right?
Okay.
On daily basis, I run the test in GA mode only. But when I am running my actual load test for all countries, all 10 countries, then I have to run my tests with around 3000 users. Then I have to disable all these listeners. I have to enable only this thread groups and disable all the listeners, save my script, close my script and open the aggregate report and run the report. Open the command prompt and run it from the command prompt only. But after running the test, you don't see anything while running the test. In non-GA mode, you can see how your test is running, right? In GA mode, in GA mode, with all these graphs in place, you can see how your test is running, where exactly you are getting high response times, if your test is failing or passing, all that you can see while you are running your test in GA mode. But in non-GA mode, can you see those things? No. Only after your test completion only you'll come to know if your test is passing or failing, right? Because after your test is completed in non-GA mode, then only you'll open the Jmeter, browse, open aggregate report and browse that CSV file, right? I'll tell you all those steps. Browse that CSV file, then only you'll come to know how many errors are there, how many failures are there on all that, right?
Okay, so what you're saying is for each of the reports, we'll configure the file name and then disable them and then run it.
No. So all reports will disable, will not enable any report, right?
Yeah.
But while running the test only, we'll one second. Okay. Okay, see. See, there is a command here, right? There is a command. I am going to explain you anyway clearly on that day. But there is a command here. You are giving a command here while you are running your test in non-GA mode. And while giving this command, you are declaring a CSV file here.
Okay.
Right?
Sir.
You're declaring a CSV file. You're declaring a .jtl file. So what will happen is after your test completion, this CSV file will get saved automatically in your local drive. So what you need to do? Again, the same process. If you want to say aggregate report, open aggregate report and browse that CSV file. Okay. If you want to see like aggregate graph, open this and browse that CSV file. If you want to see response time graph over time, browse that. It is a similar CSV report, like whatever CSV report file which I told you earlier in today's class, the same one. My sample aggregate report.csv kind
Understand.
of. Yeah, the same one. Okay.
So
see, I've
generally,
the same file now.
Okay, so I get it. So generally, if we are adding any new listeners from like download, are they all compatible generally with the CSV and JTL files? Because if let's say these are the active threads over time and all that.
Yes, they are compatible, right? That's the reason you are able to browse that particular CSV file and your graph is getting displayed. See, I've browsed already. This is a different. This is the one which we ran earlier today, right? In the morning, like an hour ago.
Okay.
My sample aggregate.csv. So these are compatible. So you can open any listener and browse that CSV file and you will get the required listener response. Like here, in this case, I'm getting response time. If you want to see transaction per second, you can browse that. My sample aggregate, and you will see, this is the TPS graph for that.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, and generally, sir, when we give it to the development, which listener data they are interested in general, like
these things, these three things only. Not only development team, DevOps team, your customers and all that, they are interested in these three graphs.
Okay, sir.
Mostly this response time over time graph and your TPS graph. Because the response time over time graph will give you the response time of your each and every transaction. Okay. And TPS graph will tell you that whether you are achieving your target transactions or not, whether you are achieving your target transactions of your fund transfer and bill payment. If you select the detail display, it will give you the TPS of detail, right? In the detail way. You can uncheck and you can select only fund transfer. You can only select, and here I am selecting only sign in. And when you are selecting, select only success. So I have selected sign in success transaction. And the same way you can select fund transfer transactions there, right?
Okay.
So that will give you the TPS of your fund transfer, right?
Right.
So these two graphs, they are more interested, and also the aggregate reports. While you are saving your aggregate, see, I told you, you can give some path before running the test. Even before running it in GA mode, you can declare a path like this, and your CSV file will get saved automatically here in this format, my sample aggregate. And if you open this, you will see this in a different format, right? With timestamp and all that, right? You just need to browse it from Jmeter, then only you'll see the actual report. But this is one way to give the file path like this. And another way, don't give any file path, but still if you want to save the report after running the test in GA mode, click on save and save the report like this. Okay, this is the report which is saved right now, right? Open this. See, this is the report, right?
Right.
So these kind of reports, you have to share it with your clients, and including those, you have to share those graphs as well And also you have to share these kind of reports as well, because this report contains the overall summary, right? But if you share this report straight away, they will not understand anything. You need to change a bit actually. Whatever you don't need, you have to remove first of all. They don't need median. You don't need to share them 95 or 99 percentile. You don't need to share them this network related stuff. So I will generally delete this. Okay, this is what they need, and just create a table like this. Okay, and if you say samples, no one will understand, because you are a technical guy or Jmeter, your performance history, you know what is samples, but your client will not understand what are samples. Make it transactions. Okay, these are the number of transactions. Okay, and this is your average response time. This is your 90 percentile response time. This is your minimum. This is your maximum, and this is the error percentage. And this is throughput, right? And these are number of transactions, and this is your scenarios, right? And you need to mention it in business terms, like so that your clients will understand, right? Do you need this debug sampler response time? No, this is debug sampler you added for your sake. You can remove this. You can even remove this when you are running your load test, because debug sampler is needed only to know that whether your correlations, parameterizations are capturing properly or not, right? So you can remove that. And even if you have to share report like this, something like this, right? And this is only for your login sign-in page. And you have to share the similar report for your fund transfer, bill payment, and all that, right? Something like this. So how many transactions are you achieving for launch, login, sign-in, log off? Okay, what is your average response time? What is your 90 percentile response time, minimum response time, maximum response time, all that, and throughput. Now, this is also very important, right? If you are achieving your throughput, your target throughput, this like this, you have to share it with your clients, your aggregator, right?
Right, sir. Thanks.
So this is all about listeners. So the major focus for you is response time over time, transaction per second graph, simple data writer, and aggregate report. So these four are very important. And of course, view results tree while you are doing scripting, right? So these are the four graphs which you need to focus. See, aggregate graph and all are not that important, right? Like, yes, you can share these kind of graphs, but you have more advanced graph in this here, response time over time and all that, right? Here you can share these graphs, right? Fine. So this is all about your listeners. Tomorrow I'll cover samplers. Still we need to cover sampler and post processor, pre-processor, post processor, assertions completed, listeners completed, config elements completed, thread groups completed, timers also completed. So I have to cover samplers, pre-processor, and post-processor. So tomorrow I'll cover sampler. I'll tell you HTTP sampler, JDBC sampler, and TCP sampler. All these three samplers in detail. Yeah.
Thanks.
Let's meet tomorrow.